Welcome back to the FNS Development Training Series. In the last video, we covered how your backend stores structured data, including systems and live event updates, using database functions and event subscriptions within the FNS SDK. In this video, we'll focus on another core backend responsibility, file management. By the end of this video, you will understand how file management is handled through the FNS SDK, learn how permissions are enforced using auth context decorators, and understand where permissions are defined and how you can create your own. Along with using the FNS SDK for file operations, every file route is also protected by permissions. Each function in this file is decorated with an auth context decorator. This decorator enforces that the request must come from a logged-in user with the correct permissions to perform the specified action. Permissions are defined using a group and an action. You have the ability to customize and define your own groups and actions based on your application's needs. For this specific example, the group is called Files and our actions are List, Upload, Download, Delete, or Batch Delete. These permissions are defined in the pc2.json file. Now that we understand the SDK's role and how permissions work, let's walk through the file itself and see how each route maps directly to an SDK function. Let's start with the list files function. This route lists all the files stored in your ProCaaSo environment. Permissions are checked using auth context, files, and list, and the backend calls the SDK using the storage list files function. The SDK authenticates the request, communicates with ProCaaSo storage, and returns a list of files. Your backend simply returns that JSON response to the UI and returns a list of files. Next, we have the download file function. This route downloads a file and streams it back to the front end. First, the permissions are checked. Then, the backend calls the SDK using the storage download file function. The SDK retrieves the file securely, and the backend then wraps the result in a streaming response so that the browser can download it efficiently. This pattern allows large files to be downloaded safely without exposing storage details. Next, we have the upload file function. This route uploads a file into ProCaaSo storage. In this function, we check the content type to ensure that it is not an image. At this time, the SDK cannot handle image files. Then we make the call using the SDK using the storage upload file function. Again, we enforce permissions, upload the file, and return a success or error response. Next, we have the delete file function. This route deletes a single file. Again, we make sure that permissions are being checked, and then we call the backend using the SDK with the storage delete file function. This deletes the specific file name and returns a status message. And lastly, we have the batch delete files function, and this route deletes multiple files in a single request. And that wraps up file management and permissions in your FNS backend. In the next section of the training, we'll shift the focus to testing and debugging your backend locally.